The events surrounding the postponed Premiership clash added another unexpected layer to what was already shaping up to be a tense period in the season. And for Celtic supporters, it was one of those moments that perfectly sums up the strange realities of following a club across the country. The decision to call the match off came only after a late pitch inspection in the afternoon, with confirmation arriving when many fans were already committed to travel plans. For those waking up early expecting a long journey north, the news landed with frustration rather than relief, especially for supporters who had already set off or were close to reaching their destination. It was not a dramatic collapse of the entire surface, but a specific area of the pitch that raised serious concerns, particularly around player safety, and that alone was enough to bring the whole fixture to a halt. From the explanations given, it became clear that the issue was not simply about the ball holding up on the surface, but about how the ground reacted under pressure. The assessment focused on whether studs could properly grip, and the conclusion was that the surface resembled mud rather than stable turf. In a league where winter conditions are always a challenge, it was another reminder that sometimes fixtures fall victim to factors entirely outside the control of players, managers, or supporters. While disappointing, the sense among fans was that safety had to come first, even if that did little to soften the irritation of a wasted journey and disrupted plans. Attention quickly shifted to when the match could realistically be rearranged, and the calendar does Celtic no favors. The rest of the month is already packed, which leaves a narrow window at the start of March as the most logical option. That particular midweek stands out because it is free from European commitments, regardless of progress on the continental stage, and Aberdeen's schedule also appears clear. If that date is confirmed, it would create a demanding run of away fixtures in a very short space of time, piling pressure on a squad already being asked to deliver consistency on multiple fronts. Trips to Europe, Ibrox, and Pittodrie in the space of a single week would test depth, mentality, and recovery. Away from the logistical chaos of a postponed match, discussion among supporters quickly turned to wider themes around the squad and recruitment, especially following the release of a recent interview with Martin O'Neill. While there were no explosive revelations, his comments carried weight simply because of who he is and what he represents to the club. When asked about recruitment in comparison to previous eras, O'Neill chose his words carefully, but the underlying message was clear enough. He suggested that he had not been entirely convinced by the approach taken in certain periods, subtly hinting that Celtic may have drifted away from their core principles when identifying and signing players. That observation resonated with many supporters who have questioned why some players were brought in without a clear pathway into the first team. The feeling now is that there has been a shift, particularly in the most recent window, towards players who fit the manager's ideas and are expected to contribute rather than simply fill squad numbers. Even those who are not immediate starters are seen as individuals who will feature and be trusted when called upon, and that in itself feels like a correction of course. One of the most talked about aspects of the interview was the subject of experience, and whether the squad needs more of it during a title challenge. This naturally led to renewed focus on Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, a name that continues to divide opinion among the support. Reports suggest that discussions have moved forward in a positive direction, with optimism growing that an agreement could be reached. Time, however, is a factor, particularly with European squad registration deadlines looming, which adds urgency to every conversation behind the scenes. O'Neill's own comments on Oxlade-Chamberlain offered insight into why the club remains interested. He spoke about ability never truly disappearing, even if hunger can fade, and made the point that at 32 years of age the midfielder still has plenty to offer. The suggestion was that this is a player motivated by challenge, aware of Celtic stature, and open to the idea of proving himself in a demanding environment. Connections with familiar faces and knowledge of the club's expectations only add to the appeal. Naturally, skepticism has followed this potential move from the moment it emerged. Celtic supporters have seen similar situations before, where experienced players arrive with big reputations and big questions attached. Doubts about whether someone is past their best are almost inevitable, particularly when that player built their name in the English Premier League. History shows that these signings can go either way, with some exceeding expectations and others struggling to stay fit or make an impact. Age, in isolation, does not appear to be the main concern. Oxlade-Chamberlain is actually younger than some key figures in the current squad, which puts into perspective claims that he is approaching the end of his career. The more persistent worry relates to injuries and whether his body can withstand the demands of a long season. This is where the debate becomes more nuanced, because while his injury record includes several lengthy absences, it is not defined by constant minor issues. The midfielder himself has addressed this perception, pushing back against the idea that he is perpetually unavailable. His argument is that he has suffered a small number of serious injuries rather than a continuous stream of problems, and that playing at the highest level inevitably brings greater scrutiny when setbacks occur. There is truth in that, particularly when injuries happen on big stages and linger in the public memory long after recovery. Looking at his recent history, there is no escaping the fact that he has not played competitively since May, which raises legitimate questions about match sharpness. A knee injury early in that game ended his involvement, and his subsequent departure from his club complicates the picture when assessing how much time he truly missed through fitness issues alone. Prior to that, however, he enjoyed a reasonable run of matches, and earlier periods of inactivity were influenced as much by selection decisions as by physical problems. Over the past 5 seasons, the pattern shows a handful of significant injuries, each resulting in extended spells on the sidelines. While that is far from ideal, it is different from a player who breaks down repeatedly after short runs of games. For Celtic, the calculation becomes one of risk versus reward, particularly given the financial context of a free transfer. The downside is relatively limited, especially if expectations are managed and the squad is structured to cope without over-reliance on one individual. The potential upside, on the other hand, is considerable. A fully fit Oxlade-Chamberlain offers experience at the highest level, tactical intelligence, and a mentality shaped by title races and pressure environments. Those qualities are not easily found, and they could prove valuable in tight moments as the season progresses. In a league where margins are small and momentum swings quickly, having players who understand what it takes to win can make a tangible difference. An interesting trend has also emerged when looking at recent signings, with many arriving at Celtic having previously been part of title-winning squads elsewhere. That experience of success, even when not always as a central figure, contributes to a collective understanding of standards and expectations. It is not something that guarantees success, but it creates a dressing room culture where winning is familiar rather than aspirational, and that can be crucial during a sustained challenge for honors. As discussions around recruitment and squad balance continue to dominate the conversation, the wider context at Celtic right now cannot be ignored, because what happens off the pitch is clearly feeding into the mood on it. Supporters are not just reacting to individual signings or postponed fixtures, but to a longer period of frustration that has been building steadily. Performances have lacked fluency, results have felt more like a grind than a statement, and patience among the fan base has been stretched thin by repeated windows that many feel have failed to fully address obvious needs. All of that forms the backdrop to the current tension surrounding the club. That sense of unrest became even more visible following the announcement from supporter groups regarding coordinated protest action. While opinions are sharply divided, the scale of the response underlines how deeply many fans feel disconnected from decision-making at boardroom level. For some, this is about far more than a single transfer window or one postponed match. It is about a perceived breakdown in communication and a belief that lessons from recent seasons have not been properly learned. The language used reflects a desire to be heard rather than ignored, and that in itself says a great deal about the current relationship between the club and sections of its support. At the same time, there remains an emotional conflict for many supporters who desperately want to back the team on the pitch, while also demanding accountability from those running the club. Celtic fans are conditioned to stand by their players, especially during difficult periods, and the idea of withholding support, even temporarily, sits uncomfortably with that tradition. Yet for others, the argument is that meaningful change rarely comes without decisive action, and that visible protest is sometimes the only way to force engagement. It is a difficult balance, and one that is playing out in real time. What complicates matters further is the reality that results elsewhere in the league do not pause, while Celtic wrestle with internal issues. Rival teams continue to pick up points, apply pressure, and shape the title race. Every dropped point or disjointed performance is magnified, not only because of what it means in the table, but because it feeds into the wider narrative of instability. The margin for error feels smaller than ever, and that sense of urgency is felt acutely by players, staff, and supporters alike. Within the squad, the challenge is to block out the noise and focus on performance, but that is easier said than done when uncertainty surrounds recruitment and long-term planning. Players are acutely aware of supporter sentiment, particularly at a club like Celtic where atmosphere and expectation are woven into daily life. Confidence can be fragile, and momentum can swing quickly, especially during a congested run of fixtures that demands both physical resilience and mental strength. That is where experience becomes such a recurring theme. The argument for bringing in players who have been part of title-winning environments is not just about technical quality, but about composure under pressure. These are individuals who have navigated periods of scrutiny, criticism, and expectation, and who understand that form can fluctuate without defining a season. In theory, that calmness can spread through a dressing room, steadying younger players and helping the team respond to setbacks with clarity rather than panic. However, experience alone is not a cure-all, and Celtic's recent history provides examples where pedigree did not translate into consistency. Supporters are right to be cautious, particularly when fitness concerns exist, but there is also recognition that calculated risks are sometimes necessary to bridge gaps in the squad. In a league where Celtic are expected to dominate, standing still often feels like moving backwards, and that creates pressure to act decisively even when certainty is impossible. As the season enters a critical phase, the fixture list shows little mercy. Rearranged matches, European commitments, and high-profile domestic clashes combine to create a demanding schedule that will test rotation and squad depth. Every selection decision will be scrutinized, every substitution debated, and every injury amplified. In that environment, the importance of having options you trust becomes clear, and the consequences of recruitment choices are felt almost immediately. For the supporters, there is a growing sense that this period could define not just the season, but the direction of the club over the next few years. Decisions made now, both on and off the pitch, will shape confidence, unity, and ambition moving forward. Whether through new signings settling quickly, existing players stepping up, or leadership emerging in key moments, Celtic need clarity and cohesion to navigate what lies ahead. The coming weeks promise intensity, drama, and no shortage of debate. With pressure mounting from all sides, the focus inevitably returns to performance, results, and the ability of the club to respond to challenge. Celtic have been here before, faced with doubts and division, yet history shows they often find a way to reassert themselves when expectation is at its highest and scrutiny is relentless. How this chapter unfolds will depend on actions rather than words, and on whether the club can align ambition, communication, and execution during a period where every decision feels magnified and every match carries weight. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling around the build-up to Celtic's European night after a bold remark attributed to the Utrecht manager began to travel fast through the corridors of Scottish football. According to sources close to the Dutch camp, the coach has been telling his players and staff that Celtic Park holds no fear for him, insisting that his side will go to Scotland with only one idea in mind: to win. The comment, already doing the rounds among supporters and pundits, has been interpreted by some as mind games, by others as genuine confidence from a manager who believes his team can stand toe-to-toe with one of Scotland's most imposing names. Celtic Park, after all, is famed for its noise, its color, and its ability to swallow visiting teams whole. Many a seasoned European outfit has spoken of the stadium with a hint of awe, if not outright dread. Yet the Utrecht boss, if the rumors are to be believed, sees it differently. Insiders suggest he views the atmosphere not as a threat, but as fuel, something to sharpen his players rather than intimidate them. He is said to have reminded his squad that history and reputation do not take the field, only 11 players do. In private conversations, he has reportedly brushed aside talk of the fear factor, arguing that courage and organization can silence even the loudest of crowds. Around Glasgow, such words have not gone unnoticed. Some within the Celtic support have taken them as a challenge, a line drawn in the sand that will only stoke the famous intensity from the stands. Others see it as classic pre-match bravado, the sort of talk that often precedes a far harsher lesson under the floodlights. Whether it is calculated provocation or sincere belief remains open to debate. What is clear is that the narrative has shifted. Instead of quiet respect, there is now a sense of confrontation, a suggestion that Utrecht arrive not as tourists but as contenders. In Scottish football, where pride in home soil runs deep, that alone is enough to add an extra edge to the night. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.